So 97% of scientists agree that the planet's warming, and the consensus is as strong as ever. 2014 was the warmest year on record, and 13 of the warmest years on record happened in the last 15 years. If we do nothing and emissions keep rising as the population grows, we'll see global temperatures rise by more than 4 degrees Celsius by the 2080s. So a global mean temperature increase of 4 degrees Celsius approaches the difference between the temperatures today and the last ice age. The other thing that we're learning that's especially tragic is that extreme weather events hurt the poor often the most. This is Malawi, and this is just from this year. The darker red areas are the places with the highest poverty. And so the blue-gray area is where the floods have hit the most. And so this is the rainy season now, but the flooding was really unprecedented. Part of the problem was that there had been droughts before, and now extreme rainfall and flooding. Villages were cut off, farmland was inundated, destroying the livelihoods of subsistence farmers. Last month alone, more than 600,000 people were affected, 64,000 hectares of land were flooded, and then after the flooding, there was an outbreak of cholera. So we know that right now, just the amount of emissions that we've put in the air so far, and then you add to it the emissions that are already locked in that we can't avoid, and we're already going to be at 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. That's locked in. Now, if we're locked into 1.5, we have to start moving right now to get to net zero emissions. And so the most important thing that we have to do is we have to decouple economic growth from carbon emission. How do you do that? Well, we have a 5-point plan. And here are the 5 most important things. For us, probably the most important thing we need to do is to put a price on carbon. Now, what's carbon pricing? Carbon pricing is simply trying to bring into our economic and financial system the actual cost of putting carbon in the air. We know that putting carbon into the air actually has a cost. So through taxes, through trading systems, there are many different ways of putting a price on carbon. So lots of good things happening. Korea just launched the newest carbon market. China has 7 pilot carbon markets, and it plans to launch a national emissions trading system in 2016. British Columbia has used a carbon tax to reallocate its tax burden and protect the poor. Fossil fuel subsidies. Now, many of you know that we're at very, very low oil and gas prices. We're almost 50% lower today than we were a year ago in terms of oil and gas prices. And so this is the time to try to get rid of fossil fuel subsidies. $550 billion that go into fossil fuel subsidies. This is the percent of GDP that different countries utilize in providing these fossil fuel subsidies. Now, there is some movement. Indonesia, they combined the increases in the price of gasoline by 44%, diesel 22%, and electricity 15%, and then started programs to mitigate the effect of these higher energy prices on the poor through subsidized rice, free healthcare, cash assistance to poor students, and a 1-year conditional cash transfer program that targeted poor households with pregnant women or school-aged children. By both encouraging the removal of subsidies and then putting in place programs to protect the poorest, you can have the effect that you actually want and not the effect that fossil fuel subsidies actually give you, which is that the top 20% of earners gain 43% of the value of fossil fuel subsidies, and the poorest, the bottom 20%, only receive 7%. So fossil fuel subsidies are fundamentally regressive, not progressive. And so it doesn't make any sense. Now, building cleaner, more livable cities is also a huge task for us, but one that can also be extremely impactful. So 1950, about 30% of the world's population lived in cities. Today, it's 54%. By 2050, 66% will live in cities, and that's 2.5 billion more residents of cities in the next 35 years. Now, why do people move to cities? Well, there's not a single country in the world that's reached middle income status without a significant population shift into cities. And what are these people looking for? The same thing that everyone else is looking for: better services, good jobs, a livable environment with parks, clean air. So how we build cities going forward is going to be a critical determinant of the amount of carbon we put in the air. Renewable energy. So we are making a lot of effort in making financing available for renewable energy. So right here, this range here, from here to there, that's the range of current fossil fuel power costs. And so we can see that in all regions, geothermal is very much within that range. Hydroelectric power, very much within that range. Wind onshore is in that range. And solar, it's a little bit varied. But this is moving very quickly. These prices are falling very, very quickly. And our own sense is that if we are aggressive enough in making financing available, in bringing some more rationality to markets, we can bring that cost down. So we know, what we know is that these cleaner sources of energy are going to be more affordable than ever before, and every day it's becoming more affordable. Climate smart agriculture is another one that we really want to focus on. Now, what is climate smart agriculture? Climate smart agriculture is just simply a way of optimizing both the productivity of farmers and also the crop's ability to withstand a changing climate. Now, how does it actually look like? So this is Costa Rica, but this is a wonderful example of how climate smart agriculture can be implemented in a particular farm. So he is protecting the natural forest on the hillside. And the way he's done it is he's planted trees to provide both fencing and shade. The fences are trees with wire strung up between them. He's preventing erosion, protecting the soil, and he's making his farm much more resilient to drought and extreme weather by planting trees for fences. And he's growing high nutrient grasses for the cattle, which increases his productivity. And so in this particular case, he is both protecting the environment, protecting his soil, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, planting these trees that, of course, take carbon out of the air, and at the same time, he's increased his income. This is what we do. These are the 5 things that we do. And there's a lot of really good news. We think that growth can be decoupled. Carbon emissions were flat this year, but the economy grew at close to 3%. And so is this the beginning of decoupling carbon emissions from economic growth? Boy, we sure hope so. I just keep thinking about my children. I've got a 14-year-old son and a 5-year-old son. And judging by the way they already talk to me, right, I can imagine in 10 or 15 years, they're going to look at me and they say, "Dad, what the hell were you thinking? You were president of the World Bank. You were investing in infrastructure. How could you have left us a world like this?" Right? So in 20 to 30 years, my 5-year-old will be 25 or 35, right? And so he will be in graduate school or whatever he's doing by then, right? And he will have to live in this world, potentially, where Bangkok's underwater. So I came here to talk about this specifically to send all of you a message. No matter what you end up doing, I mean, you can be investors, homeowners, drivers, and consumers. Every choice you make can have an impact potentially on this particular issue. The most important thing is to educate yourselves. There are so many good ways for us to take on this epidemic, and I have great hope and faith that all of you will do just that. Thank you.